to Storytime. We're reading Tanya Tucker, Nickel Dreams. Got a little Breckenridge Bourbon whiskey. I got this in Colorado when I went there for fun with my parents and my sister and her husband. It's delicious. Little product of Colorado. And it's raining. And it's getting good. The book, I promised you guys that I figured it would get good because I know a lot of our life story, and we're really getting there quickly too. Daddy's almost shooting people, and it's really something. Remember, she's only 11 as I keep reading this. Many elements played a part in my getting a record contract. Daddy's steadfast determination was probably the key factor. The fact that Billy Sherrill is an eccentric who does exactly what he wants and listens to only his own instincts is another. I'd factor in Billy's love of gambling in the music business as well as gambling at the tables. And it was necessary that publisher Al Gallico liked Las Vegas songwriter Dolores Fuller enough to use his considerable influence to convince Billy to meet with her. I also think Billy and Al had to be in Las Vegas and in a crap-shooting mindset to finalize the deal. The odds against the most important producer in country music paying attention to a kid from Henderson, Nevada were astronomical. The wheels were set in motion. When Cotton Harp, who produced my Las Vegas tape, he produced the independent tapes in Las Vegas. He showed up again, and after Daddy turned down the independent deal, remember the one he wasn't going to let somebody own his daughter's lock, stock, and barrel. That was just too much. That was a smart move on Daddy's point. Credit where credit is due. He could have easily signed that and taken the money. Most people do the first time. We'd let him know we'd moved to Henderson, and he came over that night. When Daddy told him about sending all the tapes to Nashville and trips to Los Angeles, Cotton said he had an idea. He knew a songwriter named Dolores Fuller who was promoting shows at the Flamingo Hotel. She'd once managed Johnny Rivers, and she'd written Do the Clam, Spin Out, and Rock-a-Hula Baby. I missed all three of those. For some of Elvis's movies. Oh, they were Elvis songs. Cotton thought Dolores might be able to help us, and Dad didn't want to waste any time calling her up. And Dad didn't waste any time calling her up. After they had a phone conversation, Dolores invited Daddy to come over to her house and play her the tape. She lived in a private community with a security gate. And I think we all know what that means. Fancy ass. And her house was even more plush than the independent record company's office. Plush at that time to these guys meant carpet. Thick carpeting. And I can't say I felt the same way in the Midwest. Thicker the carpet, more cash you know they got in that house somewhere. Dolores said she could get the tape to her friend Billy Sherrill in Nashville. Daddy thought she dressed too flashily. Flashily? That is written in this book. Flashily. Not sure it's a word. Something for me to do later. Google flashily. And was too Hollywood for us, but he was grasping at straws by then. Thank goodness he didn't know just how Hollywood she was. Dolores had been the girlfriend of Ed Wood, the filmmaker who directed what many think is the worst movie ever possible made ever. Plan 9 from Outer Space. Never heard of it. Now I'm going to Google that. If it's really the worst movie ever, maybe I want to watch it. That would have been a problem for Daddy, but Ed was also a notorious cross-dresser. What is going on with these people? Like, who cares? That seems to be the least of the issues with this man. He's making horrible films, and the fact that Dolores had a boyfriend who ran around Los Angeles in women's clothes would have been a big problem. Dolores had starred in 2 of Ed's movies, Glenn or Glenda and Jailbait, before heading to Las Vegas and a songwriting career. We didn't know about Ed Wood or Dolores' connection to him until a movie about his life starring Johnny Depp was released in 1995. Okay, I don't even know what that is. Was there a movie, Ed Wood? Yeah, I think there was actually. Johnny Depp, I never saw it. Dad signed up Dolores. Now I'm going to go watch the movie Ed Wood. There's so many things in this paragraph. The world's worst movie, Planet 9 from Outer Space. Ed Wood, starring Johnny Depp, and I have to Google if flashily is a word. I don't think it is. Daddy signed Dolores up as my manager, and she sent tapes to both Billy Sherrill and Al Gallico, 2 of the men who would play such pivotal roles in our lives. In Nashville, blowing sax in a rock and roll band. Al had worked his way up through the publishing ranks, pitched songs to every kind of act, from big bands to rock stars. When Al heard Dolores' story about Dad having knocked off half the doors in Nashville to get someone to listen, he must have felt a sense of sympathetic identification. These are some strange combinations of words. Sympathetic identification. Could have said camaraderie, but I get it. In 1961, just as Al was starting his own publishing company, a woman named Lillian Evans called him and said, "The next time you come to Nashville, you got to meet my future son-in-law, Billy Sherrill. He's a genius." Al says he sloughed Lillian off because he knew that everyone thinks they got the next big talent, especially if it's a family member. She kept calling and finally wore him down, and the next time he had a Nashville trip planned, he called Lillian. "All right, I'll meet this genius of yours," Lillian told him. Billy was going to record some songs he'd written at a little studio on Music Row, and Al stopped by unannounced. Billy was there all alone. See how they could go from such highs to lows just so quickly. "I thought you were recording," Al said. "I am," Billy answered, offering no explanation for the lack of session players. He fooled around with the control board, then went back into the studio, laid down piano tracks. Then he came back, fooled around with the dials again, and he went back in and played the guitar tracks. He kept right on going. He played the saxophone, he sang, he did everything. And then when he was finished, he came back in and listened. And during all this, he didn't have one thing to say to Al Gallico. Al says, he thought to himself, well, if he's a little introverted, but I think that woman was right. This boy is a genius. Al offered Billy a songwriting contract in the newly formed Al Gallico Music, and even helped him land his initial artist and repertoire job at Epic Records. Ultimately, they went into a publishing business together. Okay, I think that's a good place to end that one. And really don't have much else. The flowers are still good. You really can't ask for more for $12.99. You just can't. It worked like a science experiment. You do nothing. It's the lazy person's gardening. Just put water in there. Hardly at all either. You don't get it above the bulbs. It's supposed to go to the bottom line of the bulbs, like right there. And all right, we're going to sign this one off with the words of Ron White. What do we say? Night-night, termites.